Welcome to this week's Property Matters on Dublin South FM, the show that brings global trends to an Irish audience. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Your host for today is myself, Carol Tallon. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, we're still recording remotely, so apologies for any poor sound quality. And I'm joined on the line for our first guest today, Pat Davitt, CEO of IPAV. Pat, welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks for inviting me.
Pat, I'm delighted that you're with us today because we are getting close to estate agencies reopening and really what we've been doing over the last number of weeks, we did it for the construction sector also, is, try to prepare people for the changed workplace. And I know together with your team and IPAV, you've been doing that for the past 2 months. So look, you might just give us an update on where things are for your members right now.
Yeah. Carol, the IPAV, the Property Services Regulatory Body, and the SESI have published a joint sector protocol for property service provider and the valuation sector. We did this about 2 weeks ago, and we sent it to the Department of Housing because we were sort of hoping that we may get into phase 1. But it always sort of looked like we were going to fit into phase 2. And we believe now that we will be fitting into phase 2 for the government's roadmap for reopening society and business on the 8th of June. So we will be advising our members that the return to work will happen on our sector on the 8th of June. And we will be advising, obviously, all professionals as well as that to go through and to examine the joint property protocol for property service providers and to make sure that they're well aware of it and that they familiarise themselves with it, because it's very, very important, because these are the rules of engagement, in other words, of property service providers going back to work and valuers as well.
Okay, Pat, are they available on the IPAV website? They're
available on the IPAV website. They're available on all the website, actually. Just people are listening that are members of the other institutes or they're members of neither institute. They're available on the PSRA, they're available on IPAV, and they're available on the SCSI. And we have sent out to all our members already. The SCSI have sent it out to all their members already. And the PSRA have sent it out to all property professional PSPs. So everybody that's in the property services business should have a copy of this document by now.
Okay, and you might just talk us through some of the key changes that need to take effect immediately.
I suppose the most important thing about the protocol is the protocol is written on the basis of the licenses that people have. So that if you, for instance, have a license A, which is the sale of goods and chattels and that type of thing, like cars or cattle or horses or that type of auction property, the protocol starts off with that, and it goes through right from the viewing of an auction to the actual auction taking part, to the sale of the auction, and to the handing out of the goods afterwards. And it takes each point along, and it will go through it and tell you what you need to do along the way to make it safe for people coming in to the auction and for people who own properties at the auction that are selling them. So I suppose the biggest thing is, from all our points of view at the moment, is the social distancing. And the social distancing, I know there's a lot of talk about whether it's going to be 2 meters or 1 meters, but we're anticipating it's 2 meters in this protocol document, so that 2 people can come together, but no more than 2 people, and they can sit together. But after that, it's social distancing, and it's social distancing in getting into the auction. Obviously, the washing of hands and the sanitising of hands. If we use I don't know if you know the little paddle bids that you use at these auctions. If you use those, they'll be sanitised before and after the auction. Basically, the auctioneer will announce the conditions of the sale, but they'll also announce the HSE conditions as well for the auction to make sure that people are kept safe. And when the auction is over, if you buy something, you can go and pay for it by credit card, preferably at the auction, or if you're buying a piece of land or something else, as we get into different types of licenses, but it will still be by auction, you would pay by ETF or transfer. So it's really, there are a lot of amendments and changes that actually need to sort of take place and that will take place, but at the same time, manageable and very manageable.
Yeah, and absolutely. And look, I'd love to break it down to a really practical level. So, over the past, 5, 6, 7 years, we've gotten used to not just online auctions, but maybe the multi-lot auctions, the very large ones. Whereas around the country, what tends to happen is, the auction might be held in the back room of the auctioneer's offices or in a local hotel. And usually they wouldn't draw a massive crowd, that would fill to capacity, but sometimes that happens. So does that mean we'll actually see maybe limited attendance at auctions around the country?
Yeah, and I think a lot of these type of auctions that we're talking about, goods and chalet and chalets and fine arts, I think a lot of them over the past years have been bidders online anyway. So that obviously won't change. There's been telephone bidders and they're still going to be there. And there's people that like to go themselves and see if they're buying something by fine art or they're buying something like that they want to go and see it. So that won't change, except that obviously if you've got a room that holds 100 people, up to now, there'll probably be only 30 people in it or maybe 35 people in it with the social distancing into the future, which will limit the amount of people obviously that can come to the auction, or the auctioneer won't have to have that auction in their auction room any longer or in the back of their office. They'll have to have it someplace that's capable of holding maybe 40, 50 people or something, so that auctioneers will have to judge themselves as to what they're selling, what the interest.
Now, Pat, you're back joining us on the line there. Yes. Apologies. These are the challenges of recording remotely. That would never happen in the studio. So, Pat, we were just discussing how attendance at auctions might need to change. And one of the interesting aspects about that is that, auctions that happen in the auction room, particularly in rural areas, they can be something of a spectator sport. Whereas online, you can only watch the bidding activity if you're registered to bid. So do you think we're likely to get to a scenario where people will actually have to register and perhaps put forward their deposit if they want to attend an auction and show an intention of being there to bid?
I think the auction is... the auction as it stands is really on two different licenses with the PSRA. So as the goods and chattel is the first one, and fine art and that. So I think that a lot of people would go to that. There might not be as much spectator sport as if somebody was selling a property under the B license, which again would be by auction. But it could be a piece of land or a house or something that locals would like to go and see what's going on as a spectator. And for now on, under the protocol, if you want to attend that auction, you're going to have to register to go there. And if you want to bid, you may well be asked by the auctioneer to give a credit card or a deposit or something before such time as you do, but you certainly will have to register online, and there will be no such thing as walking up to an auction and walking in when an auctioneer might have a certain amount of people, appointments and a certain amount of people coming, and then find that they wouldn't have room for others that would come like that. So that won't be the case for the future.
Okay, and that's a fair position for estate agents to take and auctioneers to take. Pat, look, you and I spoke, and you joined us on the show about maybe 2.5 months ago, really, as we were just starting into the shutdown, and we really didn't know what to expect. And I know that your members at the time were finding it tough, but we're working around the challenges. But obviously 2 months has passed. So from your communications with your members all around the country, how are regional estate agencies finding things?
I think the last time we spoke, offices were closing and they probably had back-end staff in the offices. And I think that would probably be the same or something very similar still. The front offices would obviously be closed, and there would be staff coming in and out of the office doing different, maybe doing different brochures, maybe taking different offers, etc., filing different contracts, that type of thing. And that would still be going on. There is some viewings going on of empty houses for, again, mostly the viewings are going on for frontline workers. Under the government regulation of the 28th of March, if you're a link to a business that's an essential services business, you can continue on doing that business. So if it's viewing for frontline workers, if it's accommodation for the homeless, for the needy, if it's valuation for banks, for as accountants, for people who are on the list, you can continue doing them. But obviously you have to do them safely, and some people don't want to do them. But if valuers or agents want to do those viewings, they can do them. But there would be no open viewings, as we know open viewings, like people coming in a mass of 10 or 12 or 20 people coming to a property to look at it. That wouldn't be allowed, and isn't even allowed under the new industry protocol.
Okay, yeah, and these are the changes that as estate agencies start to open up again, hopefully at this stage, we're expecting that to happen under phase 2 in about 10 days. So as that happens, these are the new protocols that estate agents are going to have to incorporate into their work schedules. So I suppose just let's start with the offices, because at the moment we know under phase 1, so construction sites are open again. However, the offices are still, access to offices is still very limited. So anybody on the team who can work from home is continuing to do so. Is that something that's going to be encouraged for estate and letting agents also?
Yes, it's going to be encouraged from the 8th of June. So some people will want to open their office probably on the 8th of June. Some people won't want to open it. Maybe they're not ready to open it yet, because there are quite a few other things that you need to do as well, Carol, even to comply with government regulations. There's what's known as a COVID-19 plan, which turned out to be quite a large plan, because it has to be done by every business. And this plan would have to take in a lot of into consideration, a lot of the things that's needed in the office when you make a return to work, as well as it would have to take health and safety into consideration. Now, we have sent one of those to our members. It's a 67-page document. So you can imagine that it's a quite sizable document. And it would go through all of the different things in your office, like we'd say social distancing. Now, and it's not a protocol as such, but it's guidelines that has to be completed by you as being the business owner in the event of the health and safety coming to your office to find out. Like, there are things in your office which many people wouldn't think of, and things like, if you can't have social distancing, suppose you have a narrow corridor, stairs, things like that. If somebody, some of your staff get sick in your office, if some member of the public comes in and you have an appointment with them and they come to your office and they get sick, how you handle it and what you do in those particular cases. And also it provides for a person who would be a COVID person in your office, that all of this would be linked to with yourself as possibly your property manager yourself. So that a lot of things need to be done. There's also the perspex, I suppose, guards that need to be put up at front receptions. We're hosting a webinar on Friday morning to go through these protocols, Carol, which is very good from our members' point of view. And we will go through the joint sector protocol, first of all, with members, just to get them used to the way it works, like with the different licenses. And we will also go through the COVID-19 response plan. And that response plan will have to have an update of their occupational health and safety risks, which again is very, very important. And that particular part of the COVID-19 plan takes a little bit more detail to complete than the general part of the plan. So we intend to go through all of that to bring members up to date, and then they have a week then to get their offices basically ready for members of the public, and get back to work on the 8th. And that's really what we'd like to see, and get the property sector back working again, because there's a lot of people who want properties viewed and properties to view properties themselves and want to put the property in the market. We believe that there's going to be a bit of a hush up for this, that there's going to be a lot of interest, and that agents are going to be very, very busy coming out of this period to catch up on a lot of the work that they have missed out on the past number of weeks. And we think that property prices are not going to change very much one way or the other. We don't see a big decrease in property prices by 10 or 15% has been out there in the newspapers already. From what we see, we think property prices are going to come back at very close to where they were prior to COVID.
Okay, well, look, certainly, Pat, I hope that all that proves to be the case, because that's exactly what we need for the property market to continue and thrive for 2020. The webinar on Friday sounds like a great resource. Where can people find details to register for that?
They can find details on IPAV to register for us at 11 a.m. on Friday morning. They can find details if they want to register on the IPAV website, or if they want to send an email to info@ipav.ie. We will send them a link for it anyhow, but they will be able to pick it up themselves on the website.
That's super. Thank you so much, Pat. You're always a mine of information. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll leave it there for now. Our thanks again to Pat Davitt, CEO of IPAV. We need to take another quick break. Stay tuned.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to Property Matters on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. I'm delighted to be joined on the line now by Eimear Malone, owner of Ballyshane House in Inistioge, County Kilkenny. Eimear, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
I'm delighted. Eimear, I read about your story in the Sunday Times last weekend, and it's an interesting one. Together with your husband, John, at the time, now ex-husband and friend, as you describe him, you're both selling this home. But it's such a spectacular home anyway. Unfortunately, radio doesn't do it justice. But you've developed a beautiful website to promote the sale. So you might just talk to us, first of all, about Ballyshane House.
Yeah, absolutely. So we built it ourselves. So it was a self-build project. Back in 2007, we started off and then finished it 2 years later. So that allowed us to do exactly what we wanted with the house. Allowed us to kind of go above and beyond what maybe a builder would do, or put in extra features that were really special. And then the location as well. The site was family land, so we were really lucky in that gave us a good start to have a really nice site to start.
Yeah, well, you're describing it as a nice site, which is really underplaying it, because for anybody who wants to take a look at the images there, the website, while the house is pronounced Ballyshane, it's actually spelt as Ballyshane House. And you're sitting with really, Inistioge is such a beautiful area anyway, but you're sitting quite on an elevated site with beautiful views right across the countryside, and you've really capitalised on those views by the design of the home. Was the house designed by an architect, or did you do a lot of that yourself?
We did a good bit ourselves. So I suppose we had seen so many different houses of different people and 16 rooms that weren't used, and we just said, okay, we want big rooms, good, like absolutely make use of light and make use of the views. So we started just by doing sketches and seeing what else was around, and definitely then the views were really important, in that we put the living room upstairs so that you could really capture the views from upstairs.
And is it floor to ceiling windows both upstairs and downstairs, where your sitting room and kitchen overlooks?
Yeah, we got some kind of strange replies from window manufacturers when we went to them with the plans, but eventually found really good suppliers. So we have floor to ceiling on both floors. So it really captures.
Yeah, and it's such a unique design element that's so perfect for the site, and it's perfect for the house. And I mean, the house itself is very large. What's the square footage?
I had to write this down because I'm not. Is 2,700 square foot, and then 2 guest bedrooms and a master bedroom. So we just didn't want lots of small pokey rooms. We just wanted the rooms that we had to be nice and bright and spacious.
Fabulous. And you've everything complete with it looks like a bar in one of the photographs. Did you actually design a bar into your upstairs sitting room?
We did. There's a bar in the upstairs sitting room, and there's 2 separate seating areas. So you have your seating area over at the windows, which are in front of the stove. The stove is also at the windows. TV over there, so that's a very social corner. And then over in the other corner, you have your TV and your seating area over there if you want to go put yourself in the cozy corner.
Okay. Well, it looks like a house that's designed for socialising anyway. It's fantastic and beautifully executed. So well done with that. And, you know, I mentioned that I learned about your story from reading it in the Sunday Times. But yourself and John have decided to go your separate ways, and neither of you wanted to remain in the house. So you might just actually talk us through the thought process behind that, because it's such a spectacular home. Clearly so much personality, so much time, so much love went into it. You know, so it's interesting that this is the decision you've come to.
Yeah, so I suppose we were together since we were 17. So, and then eventually, and I'm 36 now. So we kind of got to the point where we knew we were more friends than we were in a relationship. So we made that decision and told family and friends, and then we have been living together quite happily. But we said, okay, we were at the point now where this was our home, so we're ready to move on then and have our own separate houses where we can visit each other, but live our separate lives then a bit more practically.
Okay, and I know it makes that does make sense when you say it like that. And again, obviously this is a deeply personal issue, and certainly we're not going to go down that road. But it's interesting when you come together to design a home that's envisaged for life, then it really does become not just the home of one person, but it really is the joint dreams of two. But you seem to be very optimistic about creating this. Was done at a time when it was right at the time for creating this home, but now seems to be the right time for you each to create a home yourselves.
Absolutely, and then have somebody else here then, and there's be more parties and more barbecues, and it's nice to pass it on now to another couple or another, whoever ends up having it. Yeah.
Well, look, it's a spectacular home. So, I'm certainly very envious of whoever ends up in it, because I think, look, I've mentioned there that it's an elevated site. It's in a beautiful location. But I mean, Inistioge, for anybody who's not familiar with it, for me, the generation I am, it will always be the setting of Maeve Binchy's Circle of Friends. It featured so prominently there. But, it's such a beautiful area, Woodstock House. You're close to Mount Juliet. There's beautiful walking trails. Does the Barrow walking trail go as far as Inistioge?
It does, yes, yeah. I actually got a really, it's something that it was an inquiry to me was quite surprising, but I suppose it makes sense. Because we're getting inquiries about the house, so somebody asked if it was possible to walk to Inistioge and not go on any roads. So then when I looked at some of the walks I do, it is actually possible to walk entirely to Inistioge it would take you longer, but you can walk through fabulous forestry, and then you can walk down through Woodstock Gardens and then come out in Inistioge village all the way from this house. So it would be a really lovely walk.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I've many a times walked Woodstock, and then obviously from Woodstock in and out of the village, and the views are spectacular. It really is. It's an unusual part, from St. Mullins and that area. It really is a beautiful part of Ireland. One of the things that really struck me about your story is that, not only is this an unusual house and an unusual setting, but you've also decided now to pass this on in a very unusual way. So you're selling it yourself? You're not using an estate agent?
Yeah, which is unusual.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So why is a matter of interest?
Yeah, so I built a house, but I've never bought a house or I've never sold a house. So I literally had to Google how do you buy a house, how do you sell a house, because I had no prior knowledge of the process.
That's fair.
So first thing is you must have a solicitor. So I said, okay, that's fair enough. You have to have a solicitor. And then the next thing is you should have an estate agent, or that's the usual route. Mm-hmm. And then looked into the roles and the responsibilities of the estate agent. So one of them was marketing the property. And I kind of thought, okay, well, I think I can manage that. I can create a website. I can maybe try to create a bit of a buzz around the house, put some social media together, so it has its own social media accounts on Instagram and Facebook. And then the other roles then were showing the house, so showing people around. And I had looked into that a little bit as well. It's a bit more common maybe in America and the UK than it is in Ireland, but it is done on occasions. And then the third role, and something I can't do, is I suppose controlling and accepting bids in relation to each other. So obviously I have no license to lose, so I would never expect somebody to believe me if I rang them and said, oh, actually there's another offer in and it's X amount higher than your offer. So the way around that then is to say each offer will be considered in isolation, and I'll either say yes or no, and that's the end of it. There'll be no back and forth, proof of funds. If you don't have funds when contracts are signed, that's, it would be a waste of time for everybody. So I don't see, that kind of. So once I kind of worked out that maybe I might be able to do it myself, I said I'll give it a go.
Okay.
And then
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and then my other kind of next step is give it a go, and if it doesn't work, I have no problem then going to an auctioneer and saying, actually, that didn't work, but hopefully it will.
Yeah. Okay. No, look, I am. It's not the usual route, but
No.
I'm interested myself to hear how you get on. Now, I'm quite sure, just because, again, to play the devil's advocate here, I'm sure if we had an estate agent on the line, they would probably tell you about some of the other services that they do. So, for example, and by the way, just to get it out there, I'm not an estate agent and I never have been. But I would say that the role of an estate agent, particularly in a local area, also takes in their local knowledge. So their local knowledge of competing properties, whether they're openly on or on the market yet or available off market, but also knowledge of a local pool of buyers that might be, and not just know who potential buyers might be, but also their financial circumstances in, if they've just sold land, or if, they've come into inheritance, or if they're planning on selling their own home, or they've family returning. They just know the circumstances of buyers who have made inquiries. So, so just, I suppose, to throw it out that there are a number of other functions, and also in terms of valuing the property, because that's a really big one. I spent many years as a buyer's agent, going back, more than a decade or longer ago. And, it was interesting then, because what we invariably found is that, people, absolutely understandably, people maybe would be very attached to their home. So they might place value at a different place maybe than the market value. So how did you go about assessing the value of the home?
So we did that in a very, tried to take that, what we were saying about the emotional attachment that you think your home is, what about the value of the site and the views and the services that were put in, and then the square.
Eimear, I'm sorry, the line is breaking up there slightly. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
No, you're fine. It's just breaking up there slightly. So you might just start there from and let our audience know how you came to reach a value of the home.
Yeah. So we a technical approach to not have that kind of emotional value of saying my house is the best house. So we looked at the value of the site with the views and the location, the cost of building in this area with this square footage, with the spec and the finish that's in the house, and then added on, I suppose, the difficult of getting planning permission. It's very strict in Instead, and then that's where we reached our purchase price.
Okay, and actually, as a matter of interest, then, for you to create your own new home, just because planning in that area is quite strict, will you be able to secure planning again, or are you confident of securing planning again?
So what I'm hoping to do, and what I'm keeping an eye out for, is a little maybe stone cottage that's derelict, to renovate that. That's where I'm planning next, if that's possible. That's that's plan A, and then I'm going to go from there.
Yeah. Okay. No, because actually it is a part of the country that actually has exceptionally strict planning, and probably even more so. Yeah. Which, by the way, adds to the beauty of it and the appeal of it. So look, you've actually launched a website now, and by the way, the photography is absolutely beautiful. The brochure is so beautifully laid out that I'm actually hoping that estate agents will take a look at this website and photography and brochure just to see how beautifully presented a property should be. But how are you going about marketing it?
So my first point of call was I hired a professional photographer. So really good guy. He's from Enniscorthy. His name is Conrad, and he did the photographs. Thankfully, prior to lockdown, nothing had happened before any of the photographs were taken. And then I created the PDF brochure and sent that to some of the property magazines and newspapers with the hopes that somebody would be interested in featuring it. And thankfully, and that was just a case of Googling the email addresses. I had no connection or anything to the Irish Times. So they got back to me and were interested in featuring it. Created the website fairly quickly in just a couple of evenings because I already had the content, and then set up the social media accounts. There's some paid promotional sponsorship posts that I've put. Maybe you don't have to put a huge spend into social media sponsorship. So there's maybe 50-60 euro got into that. So that's my process so far, and I've gotten really good feedback and interest. And if I need to step it up another level, then I might look at, it's not listed on Daft or it's not listed on My Home, so that would be maybe my next step if I feel the need to do that.
Okay, but you're quite adamant that the right buyer for this home is probably not a local person. It's probably not somebody who's even living or based in Ireland, but perhaps somebody who's looking from outside of Ireland, maybe looking for a real retreat in the country.
And I think based on say the stats in the back end of the website, there's a lot of people from the UK viewing the website. So I think that's more than likely where the buyer will be coming from.
Very good. Well, then I hope that you've tried to get some property editorial in the UK as well. I
actually haven't, no. So
there you go. That's your next step.
Next step. Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Eimear, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm fascinated by the process. I was so impressed, not just from the property itself and the location, but your presentation of it is absolutely stunning. It's absolutely first rate. So certainly, I would encourage anybody who's interested, certainly in property in that area, to go on to it's pronounced Ballyshane, but again, for the purpose of spelling, it's BallyshaneHouse.com. Is that correct?
The same from on Facebook as well, Ballyshane spelling, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And my apologies to anybody listening in. The sound quality of the line is quite poor, but I think that's a really interesting story. And Eimear, with your permission, it's definitely one that I'd like to return to, because I'm interested to hear how you get on selling a property that isn't listed on our property portals, or not using an agent, or if in a month or two that changes. So look, absolutely best of luck to yourself and John now. Stunning home, really so much love and design and care and has gone into the build. The next owners will be very fortunate to get it. So I'm really interested to see how this process works. So Eimear, we might touch base again, or you might keep us updated in the process as you move along.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd love to. That'd be perfect.
Super. And just a reminder to everybody there that the website is www.Ballyshane.com. Eimear, best of luck to yourself and John. And thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story. We need to take another quick break now and we'll be back shortly.
Thank you.
Stay tuned.
Bye-bye.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to Property Matters on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Tallon. We are, of course, recording from home as the radio station operates remotely in full compliance with government guidelines. So please bear with us for any sound quality issues. So I'm delighted to be joined on the phone now by John Callan, Head of Product and Client Solutions at MyHome.ie. John, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Delighted I can join you.
John, this is exciting news from My Home, because obviously My Home would be well recognised as one of the early tech leaders in the property market in Ireland. You know, certainly always at the forefront for new innovation. So I'm excited to hear about My Home Live, which was just launched over the past week. So you might just explain to the audience, what is My Home Live?
Sure. So My Home Live, it's a new solution that we've launched last week, as you mentioned. It offers all estate agents the opportunity to live stream property viewings on our platform, MyHome.ie, to an unlimited number of viewers. So agents can live stream a video of themselves while doing a tour of the property, and viewers can ask questions via a live chat facility while they're viewing it. And it's effectively creating a digital open viewing platform.
Excellent. So this would, of course, then be by way of scheduled, not necessarily appointment, but certainly these would be scheduled in advance, and then prospective buyers, do they sign up to log on?
Yes, absolutely. So if you think of the process in the real world, when pre-COVID-19, when an open viewing for a property may occur, the estate agent would schedule an open house viewing for that given property, and a number of people would turn up and register at the door or pre-register for that property. And you could have 10, 20, 30, 40 people at a viewing. Now, given that the new reality of COVID-19 and the new social distancing protocols, etc., those type of open viewings, we believe, won't be able to be facilitated anymore. So what we have created is a digital open viewing whereby a user may come on, first of all, an estate agent would schedule an open viewing, go to the property on their own, walk through the property, live stream a video of that property, and users can pre-register to view that in the comfort of their own home. And should they want kind of the estate agent to go back and go through the kitchen or get a different angle or look at a different room slightly differently, etc., they would be able to engage there and then with the estate agent to do that while the estate agent is videoing the property.
Okay, that's excellent, particularly in terms of the questions. But just from the estate agent's point of view, because I'm very aware from working with PropTech Ireland over the past 4 to 5 years that there's a huge difference in terms of technological ability and willingness to embrace technology by estate agents up and down the country. So I suppose, first of all, for ease of comfort and use, how easy is it for an agent that mightn't be very tech savvy to conduct this viewing and to host the Q&A?
So it's super straightforward. So all our agents who engage and list their properties with My Home have access to our property manager system where they go to upload their properties. So they're familiar with that platform already. So they would just go, log on to the platform, schedule a time that suits them, turn up at the house then at that appointed time, log on their mobile and turn on their camera, and that would start it.
Okay, excellent. And in terms of the questions, how will they be able to see questions coming in?
So the questions will be streamed and kind of fed in at the bottom of their screen on their phone. And it will, just important to note, it's only the agent that can see the questions. So you may have 10, 15, 20 viewers, but they won't be able to see each other's questions. Only the agent would be able to see the questions. So they can take kind of confidential questions and say, we'll return to that and I'll follow up with you via phone or email subsequent to the open viewing. Or if it's a general kind of public orientated question, they'll be able to answer it there and then on the platform verbally. Okay.
And will viewers be able to see how many other viewers are there in the same way as you might if you're walking around an open house?
Not currently. That is the plan in the future, that we would be able to do that. However, in an interest to get the product to market to support the industry, and as the industry begins to open up again, we had to descope some initial features like that. But in the future, yes, that is something we'd like to be able to do.
Yeah, that's great, because it's an important one as well. It's a little bit like bidding at an online auction. You want to know how many people are bidding, because it's not necessarily an accurate representation, but it's a good indication of other interest in the property at that time. And in terms of the live viewing, will that be available then for somebody to view afterwards? Say, for example, if they can't view at the prescribed time while it's live, is there an option to view back?
Yes, so we've empowered the agent to do that. So after the viewing has occurred, the agent will be able to access through their own private back-end portal on My Home, and they will be able to access the viewing, see the recording, and see all the people who have attended and be able to follow up with those individually. And should they so wish, then they can attach that viewing to the listing on My Home in the future.
Oh, excellent. Okay, great. And is there an option to do multiple viewings, live viewings or live streamed viewings per property?
Yeah, absolutely. Not obviously concurrently, but you can like if you've got a nice property and you want to do 5 viewings over 5 lunch times, you could absolutely do that. There's no restriction on the number.
Okay, and look, I would almost assume that this is something that will be very well received from, potential buyers or investors. But from the agents themselves, what kind of reaction are you getting as the agents actually get to grips with this?
So we've had a super reaction from agents, to be honest, because
Great.
and there's been multiple different reactions, and I share some of them. So some of it will help bring uniformity to virtual viewings and a level of consistency. And so rather than having to record something on a YouTube video and share pre-recorder, that this would kind of professionalize it and give estate agents more kind of control and ability also to engage and develop that rapport with the potential buyer, which is really important. It'll enable them to conduct effectively an open property viewing in these social distance times. And on the vendor side, which is a really interesting one of the things that's been fed back to us is that actually we and the agents need to give vendors more comfort now that they won't necessarily need to have 10, 20, 30, 40 people streaming through their house, which at the moment they are up until COVID-19 may have been the typical way to view a property. Whereas this will enable an agent to do a virtual viewing, a live viewing. The prospective buyer can shortlist themselves in or out and then conduct a one-to-one viewing.
Okay. And I can absolutely see the value of this. And it's something that we've spoken about. We've actually spoken about it over the past year and a half here on the show, but particularly over the past 2.5 months since the shutdown. One of the things we've talked about is that the technology absolutely exists for the entire property process up to conveyancing to be done in a frictionless way online. But the missing element there is, that culture shift. We hadn't really made the culture shift to, particularly for the second-hand home market, for buyers to, I suppose, to buy a second-hand property that they hadn't walked around, with the exception of, maybe investors or people who are living overseas or something. So by My Home introducing this, in a way, it is normalizing that it is okay to purchase a property without physically walking through it. So in terms of the culture shift, have you any plans, I suppose, something that you can do to help buyers make that transition? So
to help, I think there still will be a big mindset change that buyers would have to go through to buy a property without seeing it. Like there are certain things that maybe you can't really capture through a virtual viewing, but what it will do is really, really enable you to rule yourself in or out as a buyer for a property, and so that will facilitate a one-to-one viewing if you really do want to see the property. So I think that I can see a scenario emerging where the open viewings of the past will be a thing of the past, that they won't re-emerge in the new post COVID-19 or existing COVID-19 kind of reality. And I can see, particularly in the rental world, people renting much more, and we already have a lot of anecdotal evidence from from letting agents whereby people are conducting the whole thing end to end virtually. So integrating a live streaming feature into our platform will enable an agent to do it all pretty seamlessly online, rather than having to pre-record stuff on a YouTube or do a Facebook Live kind of viewing, etc. So it's all integrated for them to do it in a much more seamless fashion.
Yeah, I agree with you actually in terms of the rental market. I think that tenants will absolutely love this. I think they're absolutely happy to rent a property. In fact, what we've seen over the past 3 to 4 years in Dublin is that prospective tenants are so eager to rent that they would happily rent something based on photographs alone, not even a live viewing. So this will absolutely improve this. But it's interesting that, you know, there was a proptech solution in the Irish marketplace for rental properties that were only being viewed remotely, and that was Spot a Home. And the Irish office of Spot a Home was one of the early casualties of COVID-19, and they exited the Irish market over the past few months. So I think that this might be one of those times where it was the right solution, but perhaps not the right time. Whereas now the COVID-19 restrictions have made this not just an option. It's no longer just a nice to have. This is how we're going to do business. And I think it will be easier for tenants to make that shift than potentially for home buyers. But yet, home buyers for newly built properties off plan do this.
Absolutely. And it was one of the reasons why we really were keen to bring it to market at this time when the construction industry was going back to work last week, and potentially like there will be show houses that potentially could be viewed on site, or that as the market begins to emerge from lockdown. And this will just, we believe, releasing at this time and ingraining this new way of doing business and trying to bring more of the process online is the right thing to do. And that cultural shift, it was probably happening anyway, albeit slowly, but this crisis has really accelerated the property industry's adaptation of online features and technology, as well as virtually every facet of our life at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, John. So in terms of adoption, I know that this has only been rolled out in the last week. So have you had any live viewings streamed so far?
We have a number scheduled. None that have actually happened, but we have a number scheduled.
Yeah, no, but look, that's the
Exactly.
joy of early adopters coming in. So it will be interesting to see, are they scheduled now to happen this week?
They're scheduled to happen this week, yeah. So we're really excited about those and to get the feedback from agents and viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you know yet? Have many buyers signed up for these, or potential buyers or tenants signed up for the ones that are scheduled this week?
I don't have any stats on that yet. I know we have a number scheduled, but I don't know actually how many have registered at the moment.
Okay, and in terms of the current rules and the HSE guidelines, I presume at the moment we can only view properties that are vacant in any event.
Yes, at the moment, that's my understanding. You can only view properties that are vacant, and there's quite tight protocols about slots for it's a one-to-one viewing arrangement. Slots, everything has to be recorded, and as to who the person is attending, stuff sanitized, etc. in between viewings and so on.
Okay, very good, John. And just for the estate agents who would be the people using this, and that we want to really promote the use of this, is there an additional charge for this service?
No, there's no additional charge for this service. We're launching it because we feel that it's the right thing to do for the market at the moment and try and get the market moving again.
That's great to hear. And in terms of, are there any restrictions on the number of properties or viewings that any particular estate agency can use?
Not at the moment. We don't. Like, what we're trying to do is drive adoption at the moment and drive usage, iron out any kinks that may occur. And then in the future, is obviously there's a cost for us to provide the service. We'll have to look at what that is and make sure we come up with a model that sustains it for us and is sustainable for agents to use.
Yeah, it's amazing that you got this done and out into the market in such a short space of time. So that's a massive credit to you and your team there, John. Well done. This might be a very premature question, but knowing how the innovation cycle works, can you give us a glimpse as to what you're working on now or next?
So we've got a lot of exciting plans, many of which were in train prior to COVID-19, and we had to rejig the priority of them. And as a result of it, we got My Home Live out very quickly. We're super proud of that. We're
that's amazing.
Second in the world with this feature on our site after Hemnet in Sweden. So we're really proud of that and proud of the team to have delivered it so well, so quickly. In terms of other items we're working on, we've some really innovative solutions coming to big problems that we believe exist in the market at the moment. It's a little premature just to say what exactly they are, but I'd love a chance in the future to talk to you and your listeners more about those, because we believe there's a lot of problems and challenges agents and users experience in the property buying ecosystem, and we've got exciting plans to address those.
Good. Look, I look forward to hearing more about that. John, thank you so much for being with us today and talking us through My Home Live, which is such an exciting feature, second in the world. That's an amazing achievement for your team to get that rolled out so quickly. So well done, and thank you again. That was John Callan, Head of Product and Client Solutions at MyHome.ie. And that's it from us today. Thank you for listening into Property Matters on Dublin South FM, the show where property matters. Get in touch with the show by emailing hello@ipropertyradio.com or on Twitter @ipropertyradio. Also, my thanks to Peter Rice on sound and to show producer Katie Tallon of Hear Me Roar Media. We'll be back at the same time next week. From myself, Carol Tallon, and all the team here, stay safe.